world of football, every young player dreams of making it to the top. The fame, the money, the glory of playing professionally. But what happens when someone wants that dream so badly they're willing to lie their way into it? This is the story of Alessandro Zarrelli, an Italian amateur footballer who sent fake faxes to professional clubs across Britain, claiming to be a hot prospect from the Italian Football Federation. His audacious scheme fooled managers, directors, and coaches before it all came crashing down on national television. Alessandro Zarrelli was born on September 5, 1984, in Italy. Like millions of young men across the country, he grew up loving football. He had some talent, enough to play youth football for ACD Asti, a minor Italian club. But talent and professional ability are two different things. Zarrelli was an amateur, and the gap between amateur and professional football is vast. By his early 20s, Zarrelli faced a reality that confronts countless aspiring footballers. He wasn't good enough to make it through conventional channels. The scouts weren't calling. The professional contracts weren't materializing. For most people, this would be the end of the story. A dream acknowledged and then filed away as life moved on to other things. But Zarrelli wasn't ready to give up. If talent alone wouldn't open doors, perhaps he could find another way. What he came up with was audacious, deceptive, and remarkably simple. He would pretend to be someone he wasn't, and he would use the credibility of institutions he had no connection to. In January 2005, football clubs in Northern Ireland and Wales began receiving unusual correspondence. Faxes arrived claiming to be from an Italian football executive named Matteo Colobas. The letters offered clubs an exciting opportunity, the chance to sign a promising young Italian midfielder on a cultural exchange loan sponsored by the Italian Football Federation. The player being offered was Alessandro Zarrelli. According to the faxes, he had played at youth level for Sheffield Wednesday and Rangers, two clubs with serious reputations. His brother, the letters claimed, had played for Torino. The Italian Football Federation would supposedly cover his wages. For lower league clubs operating on tight budgets, this seemed like an incredible opportunity. A talented young Italian with top-level experience, available for free. There was just one problem. None of it was true. Matteo Colobase didn't exist. He was Zarrelli himself. The young Italian had never played for Sheffield Wednesday or Rangers. His brother had no connection to Torino. And the Italian Football Federation knew nothing about any cultural exchange program. Zarrelli had identified a vulnerability in the football transfer system. Lower league clubs didn't have extensive scouting networks or the resources to thoroughly vet every potential signing. They relied heavily on trust and official-looking documentation. A fax from what appeared to be a legitimate football authority carried weight. Who would make something like that up? The first club to take the bait was Lisburn Distillery, a team in the IFA Premiership in Northern Ireland. The fax arrived, the offer seemed legitimate, and the club decided to give this young Italian a chance. Zarrelli had successfully talked his way into a professional football environment. But there was an immediate problem. Zarrelli could talk a good game, but he actually had to play one. When he took the field for a friendly match against Finn Harps, the gap between his claims and his abilities became painfully obvious. This was not a player who had trained with Sheffield Wednesday or Rangers. This was not someone the Italian Football Federation would sponsor. This was an amateur who had no business being on a professional pitch. Lisburn Distillery released him after that underwhelming performance. His time with the club was brief and unremarkable. But remarkably, this failure didn't stop Zarrelli. Instead of accepting that his scheme had run its course, he simply moved on to find new targets. By July 2005, Zarrelli had set his sights on Wales. The Welsh Premier League was home to several clubs that might be interested in a promising Italian player. And crucially, they were unlikely to have heard about his failed stint in Northern Ireland. Bangor City received the familiar fax from the mysterious Matteo Colobase. Manager Peter Davenport, a former Manchester United and Nottingham Forest striker, was intrigued enough to bring Zarrelli in for a trial. The young Italian arrived with a broken nose, which conveniently prevented him from playing in actual matches. He participated in a warm-up session but never took the field competitively for the club. Davenport, however, was a professional who knew how football worked. Something about this situation didn't add up. He began making inquiries, contacting Mike Rigg at Sheffield Wednesday to verify Zarrelli's supposed history with the club. The response was definitive. Sheffield Wednesday had never heard of Alessandro Zarrelli. Glasgow Rangers confirmed the same thing. And when officials contacted the Italian Football Federation directly, Antonelli Valenti stated that Zarrelli's name appeared nowhere in their database at any level. The deception was unraveling. Other red flags emerged. Despite the original facts claiming the FIGC would cover his wages, Zarrelli suddenly requested £200 per week from the club. During his brief stay, he lodged at the Regency Hotel, owned by one of Bangor's directors. When he left, he failed to settle his bill. Davenport later reflected on the experience with a mixture of amusement and disbelief. The Italian had only been there about a week and a half. He looked the part, well-dressed, confident, speaking with that smooth Italian charm. But he couldn't play, and his story was full of holes. Undeterred by his exposure at Bangor City, Zarrelli tried his luck with Connah's Quay Nomads, another Welsh Premier League side. Club secretary Bobby Hunter encountered the same charming Italian with the same impressive claims. But by now, word was spreading. Hunter's assessment was blunt. Zarrelli was the stereotypical smooth Italian. He certainly looked the part, but he couldn't play to save his life. Manager Neville Powell had no interest in signing him. Hunter also raised a question that perhaps should have occurred to everyone sooner. Why would the Italian Football Federation want to send the cream of their youth talent to Connah's Quay? Zarrelli even approached Total Network Solutions FC, the reigning Welsh Premier League champions who had recently faced Liverpool in the preliminary stages of the UEFA Champions League. But TNS had learned from the experiences of other clubs. Secretary Ian Williams said simply that they didn't pursue it. They did their homework beforehand. By 2006, Zarrelli's exploits had attracted the attention of television producers. Sky TV was developing a documentary called Super Fakes, examining cases of footballers who had conned their way into professional clubs. Zarrelli's story was perfect material, and they paired it with the famous case of Ali Dia, who had briefly fooled Southampton into signing him in 1996. The documentary crew did their research. They traced the fax number Zarrelli had been using to a shop in Asti, Italy, just around the corner from his parents' house. The connection between Alessandro Zarrelli and the fictional Matteo Colobase was now undeniable. To conclude their investigation, the producers set up an elaborate sting operation in London. They posed as football scouts interested in signing Zarrelli and arranged a meeting. True to form, the Italian showed up ready to impress. He launched into his familiar routine, explaining his career history with Rangers and Wednesday, mentioning that he had recently been playing for Milton Keynes Dons. When the interviewer asked about Matteo Colobase, Zarrelli initially claimed he was a friend of the family. Then came the reveal. The interviewer explained who they really were and that the entire meeting was a setup. Caught red-handed, Zarrelli had no choice but to admit his deception. But in a twist that revealed something about his character, Zarrelli didn't slink away in shame. After the confrontation, he phoned the documentary's presenters to sarcastically thank them for making him famous. The recording was played at the end of the show, a final glimpse into the mind of a man who seemed to view the whole affair as something of a game. For most people, being exposed as a fraud on national television would be the end of any football ambitions. The documentary aired in June 2006, and Zarrelli's face and story were now public knowledge. Every club in Britain could watch his confession on YouTube. His reputation should have been destroyed beyond repair. But here's where Zarrelli's story takes an unexpected turn. Rather than disappearing from football entirely, He managed to rebuild his career in the lower leagues of British football. Not through deception this time, but through persistence and whatever genuine ability he actually possessed. He moved to Scotland and played for Ardere Thistle before earning a spot with Queen's Park, one of Scotland's oldest football clubs. He was loaned out to Irvine Meadow. Then in 2010, he returned to England and played for Northwich Victoria, Hucknall Town, and Lincoln Moorlands Railway. In September 2012, Zarrelli signed as a semi-professional footballer for Distown. By this point, 6 years had passed since the documentary aired. Club chairman Dickie Upson acknowledged the elephant in the room directly. The club was aware of what happened in the past. The program was still on YouTube, and Upson had seen it. But he had met and spoken with Zarrelli and told him he would be judged on his footballing ability and nothing else. This became a pattern. When Zarrelli joined Downham Town in February 2013, manager Pete Brassett had a similar conversation with him. When they first met, Zarrelli was completely honest about his history. He told Brassett everything that had happened. The manager's response was pragmatic. The past was the past. Without a doubt, Zarrelli had got his life back on track. Some people would have buried their head in the sand, but he had come through it and picked himself back up again. Over the following years, Zarrelli bounced around numerous clubs in the lower reaches of English and Scottish football: Long Melford, Erith and Belvedere, Eastbourne Town, Sheppey United, Selkirk in the Scottish Lowland League. None of these were glamorous postings. The wages were minimal, the crowds were small, and the facilities were basic. But it was football, and it was legitimate. In July 2015, Zarrelli joined St. Cuthbert Wanderers in Scotland. Here, finally, he found some genuine success. He helped the club win a South of Scotland Football League treble in the 2015-16 season. It wasn't Sheffield Wednesday or Rangers, it wasn't the Italian national team, but it was real, earned through actual ability and hard work rather than fabricated faxes. He continued moving between clubs: Grimsby Borough, Heather St. John's on loan, Corsham Town. At Corsham, he played under manager Nigel Tripp, who became a friend. When internal club politics led to Tripp's sacking, most of the squad left in protest. Zarrelli was loaned to UWE, where he scored in his only game for the club. After an extraordinary general meeting reinstated Tripp as manager, Zarrelli returned to help the team avoid relegation. In July 2017, 12 years after his fraudulent faxes had caused such controversy, Zarrelli returned to Wales. He joined Port Talbot Town, going back to the country where his deception had first been thoroughly exposed. It was a symbolic moment, the super faker returning to the scene of his crimes, this time as a legitimate player. Zarrelli's last club was Sholing FC, where he made one appearance each in league and cup competition. He was still chasing the game, still moving between clubs in the lower reaches of British football, still trying to carve out whatever career he could. On November 21, 2018, Alessandro Zarrelli was driving his blue Mini Cooper on the highway between Royston and Duxford in Cambridgeshire. For reasons that were never fully explained, his car crossed onto the wrong side of the road and collided head-on with a Volkswagen Caddy van. Zarrelli initially survived the crash and was transported to Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge, but his injuries were too severe. He died later that day. He was 34 years old. Alessandro Zarrelli's story defies simple categorization. Was he a con artist? Certainly. He lied, forged documents, and deceived people who trusted him. He left unpaid hotel bills and wasted the time of managers and club officials who had better things to do than deal with fraudulent Italian prospects. But he was also something more complicated. Unlike financial fraudsters who steal millions and disappear to tropical islands, Zarrelli wasn't really in it for money. He wanted to play football. He wanted to be part of that world so badly that he was willing to lie his way in. When that didn't work, when he was exposed on national television and his reputation was destroyed, he didn't give up. He kept playing, kept moving between clubs, kept chasing whatever version of the football dream was still available to him. The managers who gave him second chances saw something in him worth saving. They saw a man who had made mistakes but was willing to be honest about them, willing to be judged on his actual abilities rather than his fabricated credentials. And while those abilities were never enough for the professional leagues, they were enough for Saturday afternoons at St. Cuthbert Wanderers in Corsham Town. In the end, Zarrelli achieved something through legitimate means that his fraudulent scheme could never have delivered: a real football career. It wasn't the career he had dreamed of or lied about having, but it was his. The documentary that exposed him was called Super Fakes. The title suggested someone extraordinary in their deception, a master of the con. But Zarrelli's real story is more ordinary and more human than that. He was a young man who wanted something badly enough to lie for it, got caught, faced the consequences, and then spent the rest of his life trying to make good on whatever potential he actually had. His story ended on a road in Cambridgeshire far too soon. But by then, Alessandro Zarrelli had already proven that there was more to him than the lies he told as a young man. The super faker had become something rarer, a genuine second act.